If someone is logged in online, can you please confirm that you can hear us? Sai Ram. It will come now because I unmuted. Sai Ram. Okay, we can start the study circle with 3 ohms. Om Shri Sai Ram. Let's start with a prayer to Swami. Dear Swami, we are so grateful to be able to meet here together in your presence today. While we are here together studying your word in your Bhagavatha Vahini, we ask that you open our ears and hearts to whatever it is you want us to learn. Please speak through each one of us and help us progress in our spiritual journey. Jai Sai Ram. Sai Ram, just a few housekeeping. Please mute your cell phones if you have not yet done so. And let's be respectful and have an open-minded conversation. Be open to learning. And I don't think I have to repeat the rest of those because I think we have a good understanding of how the study circle rolls. And we really appreciate each one of you showing up every week and participating. So let's try to leave our egos outside and try to learn our lessons today. So this is a review from last week. Of course, it's been 2 weeks since we have gathered for the study circle because last week was actually the regional retreat. And we generally have a regional program at that during that weekend. So just to revise or kind of bring back those memories of our discussion. In fact, I feel like our live sessions really help on YouTube because even I had forgotten what all we had discussed. So we started our discussion with God as witness. What is God's role? I always say God is witness or sakshi, but we had talked about, is God the teacher, or some people say he's the mother, the father. What's his role? And we talked about God as witness, and then of course concluded with the apeksha anubhuti, seer and the seen, and then that the fact that God will never change. He's just a witness, and he's really not the one doing the action. Then we continued our discussion with 4 pillars that Swami had talked about for karma and dharma. He said it's janma, karma, dharma, and brahman, and those are what we should practice. And during that awareness, when we talked about practicing awareness, we talked about Buddha's 8-fold path of righteousness, and how emotion is not to be playing a role in when you are doing the right action. And then we talked about what is right action in this world, and how do we know if the action is dharmic. We talked about how we can live in the now and be aware of what actions or what our thoughts are, because thoughts become actions, and thoughts become words, and words become actions. So all of that we had concluded and talked about in detail last week, last time we met. And then we moved on to purity in action, and then continued to having discussions on having the right focus, the right concentration, the right, the right thought, and being mindful. So that is a lot I have spoken. If there is anything anyone would like to add, please feel free. Okay, we can then move on. So today we are going to continue our chapter 4 discussion. I know that it's been a while since we talked about, we are coming back to Bhagavata Vahini's chapter 4, where we talked about the penitential sacrifice, where I think it was not This is not the penitential sacrifice. I thought the next one was. But anyway, we talked about how Dharmaraja was feeling, or Yudhishthira was feeling guilty after the war. And that's how we talked about karma and dharma. That was a little, you know, it stemmed from this. And then we had a long discussion about karma and dharma based off of Swami's discourse. Today, we'll continue with chapter 4 and then move on to chapter 5 because we have only a couple of slides in chapter 4. And I think there is not too much discussion, but we can take it as we go. And I think chapter 5 is just a story moving forward. So there's really not much to discuss there. And then we'll talk about we'll listen to chapter 6 and take our discussions from there on if we can get there. So with that, Om, would you like to read? Can you read, ma?
Sage Vyasa said, sinful and blameworthy acts are inevitable in battle. They should not be the cause for grief. The chief aim in battle should be the protection of dharma from its foes. If that is kept from the mind, the sin will not affect the fighters. A portrayed wound has to be treated with the knife. It is not sinful to inflict the surgery. A doctor who knows surgery and doesn't save a man by doing it incurs sin. So too, a warrior Kshatriya incurs sin by remaining quiet, not by using the sword. Dharmaraja, you speak under a delusion. I can understand others less wise being afflicted by these doubts, but I wonder why you worry over this fear of sin.
Thank you. So this is what Sage Vyasa said when Dharmaraja or Yudhishthira was feeling very sinful and he didn't know what to do. So we did talk about sin in war and dharma as in the right action. So if anyone has anything to add to this, we can continue this discussion or we can move on. Basically, I just want to know this is my thought, how can we maneuver challenges without giving into our vices, right? Because even Yudhishthira himself is a very learned man, and even Sage Vyasa said the same thing. You're very learned, but he still has doubts on how he's been sinful. So how can we maneuver these challenges, even though intellectually we may know what it is something that we can all think about. If there is anything anyone would like to add, this is great. The first question we did, and then we did not, we moved on to karma and dharma. Yeah. And that's why I brought it back. So we had discussed why was Yudhishthira finding it difficult to feel he was innocent in a dharmic war. But we did not discuss the rest of those because we moved on to karma and dharma, and which I think pretty much incorporates all of these discussions. So with that in mind, if we want to move on, if that's okay, I would like to move on to the next one, because this is where yeah. So this is where Yudhishthira says that we will have not one but 3 horse sacrifices, because he wants to cleanse all the sins that have incurred, and then only can he get peace. And I think we talked a little bit about this as well, but we have not talked about how or why Ashwamedha Yagna is considered as an atonement. We never talked about such things, but this is just something that I thought that why Ashwamedha Yagna is considered as an atonement for war. What is that role? I have no idea. So I just wrote it here. The other one is the Kurukshetra war was overseen by Krishna, and again Yudhishthira's mind wavers, and with that in mind, I mean, what are the steps that we can take to control wavering mind? Every one of us has a wavering mind. Today we are doing well and everything is great, and Swami is being very generous. And tomorrow, because something does not go the way we want, I think our mind pretty much wavers on is Swami listening to me, and I go through this quite a lot and very dramatically. Um, but um, but those are things that I think with time, of course, just with maturity, and we had talked about it last week as well, or last study circle, on how our maturity, our experiences matter, because with that experience comes that control or understanding that, hey, it, things will get better tomorrow. Asha ji.
See, Baba, one time it said that somebody asked him, is it you who gave the orders or is it the mind? How do I know the difference between them? So Baba had said, if it has come from him, it will stay. There'll be stability in it. If your own mind has made that decision, it will waver. So in other words, I feel the mind's nature itself is to waver, to its own nature,
Good
and
point,
we
Asha ji.
can't do anything about it. Be
Yeah,
aware of
very good point.
Yeah.
I think, Sairam, I think Arvind Balasubramanian's talk in the retreat, he says that when the mind, he keeps on saying, like Swami, he says, if it is from God or your conscience, there is only one thing it will say, this is right, this is wrong. That's all it will keep on telling you, whether when you are thinking of what to do, And but the mind will say something like, you know, even Swami says it is okay to eat on the puja day, you don't have to fast. And the mind will try to convince you to keep on doing something, whether you want or not, it will be navigating you in a different way. And it will give you various reasons. It keeps coming back at different angles and tell you, it's okay, one day you can eat, you don't have to fast. Or it's okay. Remember, Swami also said he ate and he keeps feeding people all the time. He doesn't starve people. See, like that kind of a mind will be telling you different answers, different things to do. But right or wrong, you do this. The conscience, the God, whatever guiding you, it will give you the same steady answer all the time. So we can pay attention to it, what we are listening to. Each time the mind try to tell you something you would like to do. That my favorite Bhavani says, Shreyas and Prayas. What is pleasant? That is the thing mind goes after all the time. What is difficult, hard to do, mind rejects it. So we need to be aware of it.
Any other thoughts on wavering mind? Okay. We can move along. So after Yudhishthira says what he says, about having Ashwamedha Yagna, Krishna actually agrees to it, and but he tells Yudhishthira that you know why concern yourself about the past and all of that, and Yudhishthira replies to Krishna's concerns, because Krishna says, you think 3 Ashwamedha Yagnas will cleanse your sin for your entire clan. It's not just for him, right? He's praying because he's now grandfather, and he doesn't want the next generation also to feel that. So, and to that, Yudhishthira, after Krishna approves and Krishna asks him, that is when Yudhishthira says this, and I'm going to read it. He says, "For you who can whiff huge mountains into dust," this is what Yudhishthira is telling Krishna, "this little pebble is no problem at all. You are my treasure, my treasury. You are the very breath. Whatever you may say, I won't hesitate. All my strength, all my wealth is you and you alone. I place my burdens, including the burden of state and this new burden of the 3 sacrifices, on your feet. You can do anything you like. You may value my word and carry out my intention, or you may discard it and cancel the sacrifices. I have no concern. I am equally happy whatever you do. It is your will and not mine." So so when Krishna approves it and kind of starts asking Yudhishthira, would that keep you happy? That's when Krishna realizes that it is, Yudhishthira realizes, I'm sorry, that it's Krishna's will, basically, at the end of the day. And Yudhishthira, remember, has extreme devotion to Krishna. I mean, they have been Krishna, they made Krishna their part and parcel of life, actually. So with that, I just felt, what does it mean to place all burdens on Krishna? I mean, can we do that? I mean, is that possible? Because Yudhishthira, through his life, we know, just knowing the Pandava story, that they have trusted Krishna at many places. Where, what does it mean to place all burdens on Krishna? And how would we be different then if we did that?
Sairam, maybe I would like to add something here. We all have actually gone through something like that. For example, in 1981, came to this country with some $700 in the pocket. That's all that was allowed by Reserve Bank at that time. And you come here with, promise scholarship, not very sure, is this going to be sufficient or not? But then you actually say, you put the burden and then say everything will go all right. If the will is of the Lord is there, it will all happen. And we have gone through that. So I think it is not difficult to follow that path of giving the burden because you don't have any other choice. And actually, in this case, he pushed Krishna. Before that, Krishna said, you don't need to do
Yeah.
any of this. That time he was arguing, and now all of a sudden it has been approved. And now, do you know that this thing is going to cost so
Yeah.
much? And now what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Now he says, okay, it's your problem now.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There is a little bit of
Agree.
dysfunction here.
I think, yeah, your example, when we came, I don't think I was surrendering and asking God, He will take care of it.
Yeah.
We may not think that way. But here, what I see is finally He surrenders. What is placing all our burden? Literally, it is we surrender. We say, You take care of it. Whatever the result, I will take it. That is how it is. To have that, we have to have faith first.
One
Like,
minute.
you know,
said,
right.
you take it, whatever the result,
Yeah.
I am okay with it.
Right.
Even Yudhishthira was not okay with whatever result.
No, but see, that is the equanimity. We talked about all this before, right? So first of all, the foundation is faith. Only when you have faith, like the child has complete faith in the mother and father, hold on to the pallu and walks wherever, or even sleeping, the child will be holding on to the little finger, right? Why? Complete surrender that the mother will take care of me. The father, to the question, where are you taking me, or whatever father takes or mother does, complete surrender. That kind of a faith we should have, first of all, to higher being, whoever you believe in as God, or in yourself. That sometimes comes out as ego or arrogance. But to believe in God, if you are in the spiritual path, and then the faith comes, surrender comes next. But when you surrender, then that maturity, the equanimity comes. Whatever we try, actually, we surrender only when everything fails. We don't know where else to go, what else to look for. Then we say, like Yudhishthira now says, you take care of everything. But
No,
that should not be
Yudhishthira
that way.
is saying everything. Yes, Manoj, give me one. So, so I always feel this is so conditional. So if I will surrender, as long as it works my way, and I am like that. So I'm just saying that is me. Otherwise, I start questioning from day one, and Swami has been through that route with me. I'm just saying that how do we do it? Ek minute, Asha ji. I think Manoj ji wanted to say something. Okay.
So that's what it is. We surrender. So there is a white zone, there's a black zone, there is a gray zone. White is always clear. We always say yes to these things. Black is completely no. We obviously say no to those things. It's always a confusion when it's in the gray zone. To do this or not to do this. There are few situations when it's in the gray zone, and we surrender obviously after trying our best. Generally, there's a tendency to surrender. So how is it actually helping? surrendering early or little late, are we still not trying, or trying without getting excited about the result? We would be still trying, even if we surrender or not surrender, we'll be still trying. But the result would be in that anxiety. So we are basically settling down our anxiety by surrendering. That anxiety level goes down, all the other functions will keep on going the same way. Everything else will be doing the same. You will be still doing the same thing, but that anxiety level will go down. That's what I feel is the benefit of surrendering at that stage. What else? So once we say that we are surrendering, are we still not trying for it? We are still doing the. Are we still not trying? That's the question.
See, we don't surrender. We have this to go through, whatever it is we have to go through unnecessarily, right? No, we do. But when we surrender, we have to have the mindset also to accept whatever is coming, right?
So that way we are
Right. See, the result may not be to our liking. Okay.
See,
Then what do we do? We should think maybe it is
what
also good
comes
for
in
me.
the way is the ego.
Right.
You surrender, and there are stories about it. God just got up to help you, and
Right.
then we brought our ego in.
Yeah,
So
right.
it sat down again, and it goes on and on.
Right.
So I find it's the ego that does not let us surrender completely. We don't have faith. That's
Yeah,
why we
that's what I
cannot, I
said.
think.
But also, sometimes the things don't go in our way. Maybe it's also good for us. We don't realize it at that time. If we can all think of some in our life, there are times that things didn't go in our way. Maybe that was good that we learned a lesson and we got a better one, better result, better things happening to us in the process.
So basically,
Right?
it's a learning process
Yeah. And
anyway.
at the
Life
mind,
is a
mind.
learning process.
Right.
You fall down and then get up again and get going. So that's the way.
So, um, coming back to Bhagavad Gita, second chapter thing.
Yeah.
So, what summary of that is, all these are planned. Everything that goes on in life is going to happen. And he says, whatever is happening, to you, Arjuna, has happened 1,000 years ago with the Manu, and so that's exactly being repeated. Same questions have been answered before. So what that means is the whole, and coming back to what Manoj said, all this are going to happen the way they are going to happen. You just put your effort. But only thing is, your mind is now free. Now you're spiritually liberated by giving it up. So that anxiety part will be gone. And that is all the only thing that you have control on. That everything is going to happen the way they are going to happen.
Yeah, I totally agree. I just wanted to, I lost my chain of thought, but yes, I totally agree with what you're saying about, oh, that is what I was. So if when you said Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, that's where Krishna says, not a blade of grass moves without my consent. That's what he says. So if that is the way, then again, we are going back into, we already talked about this on how important is our action, and how our action is going to impact that blade of grass moving. Yeah.
We have discussed that part. We did discuss that aspect.
Yes.
Do we? So what is what is our will at all?
Correct.
What is
That's
our
exact-
karma? So either we get into our karma theory, or we get into the completely surrender theory. If there's all surrendering, that then where does the karma theory apply?
Right.
So,
I agree.
So yeah, we have to do the karma. That's what he told, Lord Krishna told Arjuna, to do your duty at this stage. Don't get emotional about it. So doing duty without being emotional and without attached, that's called the theory of detachment. You do the duty without getting attached to it. That's
Right.
the way it is.
So again, I agree with what you're saying, Shankaranji, but it brings us back to entire surrendering at what level, you know?
So let's look at life of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. I mean, he totally surrendered, right? And yet he had, cancer. So he was going through the cancer. He was going through this process. So that's karma he has to face. And then, but he's always in surrender mode. I mean, you know, so that's exactly the example that I can give where you have to follow.
See, we, in Hindi we say, like, say, well, I did what the best I could. जो करना कर दिया, eh? अब जो होगा सो होगा. So in other words, just one little sentence, as we always say, कि I've done my, जो करना था, I've done my best. अब जो होगा सो होगा. In other words, जो whatever the results will come from the divine, they will be. That is the surrender to accept what will come. You have done your best, and that's what we do all the time. We try to do our best. अब उसका what the results is, God only knows. So जो होएगा सो होएगा देखेंगे. And that's all. With that sentence, we leave it. That is surrender. I feel that's the best surrender I think we can do. Huh?
So, Sairam, I think this, if you look at life itself, it's a karmic journey. We're born to do stuff. We're not born to not do anything. It's not possible. Even breathing is a karma. It's an action. Everything is an action. So this life is a journey of actions. Not acting is not a choice. It's not. You have to. So remembering that he's in charge and surrendering to him makes it an easy path for you. We have to think like, it's not like whatever we do, do we have any of, control of it? Why think of all this? In other way to think about it is, we have to keep doing something or the other. So do something that you like, you enjoy, what is right, and leave it up to him to guide you. That's another way of looking at it, I think, instead of like going back and forth at the same.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I take solace, comfort in knowing that it's God who is doing it. Because if I put the responsibility onus on myself, I'll be more troubled that I'm doing all this. So I actually feel comfortable saying, okay, it's God who is doing it. That's how I see it.
Sarah, so I feel like surrendering when we need to surrender is
Can you
all.
talk in the mic?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, surrendering, I feel is like as long as we have energy, we will try to fight. Like when we don't have energy, we'll try to surrender. That's a simple thing. Like as long as we don't have, we are done. Then it's surrendering. So even if it's smallest thing, okay, we keep thinking, when do we get into the spiritualization and all this thing? Why don't we, a 20-year or a 10-year guy will not get into this thing? Because he's full of energy. We are all here like 40s, 50s and all these things. Okay. That's why we don't have our energy. So we are surrendering ourselves. That's what I feel it.
Yeah, but there are 10-year-olds who have done it,
Yeah,
right? Like
see, that's what very rare cases.
history.
That's a very
Markandeya. I
rare
was
case.
just going to say Markandeya as well.
That's a very rare cases. That's what I'm saying. Like we talk about that rare cases.
No, kids are here. Rishi and Om, probably
Yeah.
they will get spiritualized
So
before us.
that's
yeah.
Right?
so what he said is we were discussing today morning the same thing together. So at whatever stage you reach that level, next birth would be at a higher level. It will never go waste, number one. So if you are doing at 50 year of age, next whenever you get the new birth, it will be born enlightened maybe. Maybe in that journey we will start early. Maybe.
That is stored somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, if you get to that, just sitting here, whatever karma we accrue, we have to pay back or we also enjoy. The parts of karmic activity that we are enjoying, like being able to breathe on our own, for example, which is a very big thing. We get up every morning. How many of us can think that, oh, I got up in the morning? Shankaranji pointed that out. I know you both do practice that, but I'm just saying that when until someone pointed it out, I never even thought of that. I go to bed with a plan for next day. I get up the next morning saying, this is my plan.
You have faith that you will get up.
Yeah. Oh,
See, we all have, right? When we go to bed, we are very sure I'm going to get up next morning. Do we
yes.
think this is the last night? No. No. Oh, okay. But generally, we
Yeah.
we have such faith. So that kind of a faith we should have all the time with God.
Yeah.
And one thing I want to point out, like what Subhadra said, I was thinking the same thing. When we succeed or when we get the result that we want, do we always think that it is because of God's grace? It's
That's
not my
only
doing.
practice. I'm
No,
sorry.
yes, that's what I'm trying to point out. As spiritual seekers, we can practice that way. Everything happening, good thing, we forget. When it doesn't go our way, we always look at God, why it is not going, why it is not happening. But we can train ourselves as a practice that everything, good things happen, do we always think it is because of God's grace? You know, many times we are all good people. I'm not saying we don't, but maybe we should train ourselves to think that way. Little things we
So-
can practice.
Again, that is practice.
I think we should count our blessings every day. That we are breathing, at least in the morning, you get up and you're breathing anyway. So that's a blessing to begin with.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
One thing just to answer to Venkatesh Garu, even at this 40s and 50s, we have a choice. Not every 40-year-old, 50-year-old is sitting in satsang.
I didn't say that like
No.
40s and 50s in sense, okay?
No, not trying to point out. What I'm trying to say is about energy also. At this age also, we try to put our energy into something else. So one, God's blessings. And there is some urge for us to come to this. So that's what I'm trying to say, Saira.
Absolutely. We can move on unless someone has something to add. Sairam, Raji, nobody can hear you on the online. Please talk in the mic. Thank you.
No, somebody was saying 20 to 40, if you don't have energy, what about those who are in the 80s? Where do we get the energy?
Surrender.
God,
That's what we are saying. Surrender,
God,
Raji.
God gives us the energy. That is all.
No,
He
ma,
wants.
it doesn't. So
Everything
it is all
surrender.
practice. Sairam, yes, totally agree. So so with that, actually, this concludes our chapter 4. Yes, please go ahead,
Yeah, one
JG.
question actually. So by surrendering to God, what is that you are expecting?
We should not expect. That's a
what-
very good
yeah,
question.
Yeah. What,
Very good question, Sairam.
then what do you mean by surrendering to God?
Correct. Absolutely.
Accept everything, whatever it comes to our life, we have to accept.
No, the surrendering to God, is it going to change? No.
No.
It,
I mean,
doesn't, it never
I
changes.
think it is our mind. It might be calmer
right.
because you don't have the control now. Say, we think we have the control all the time. So when you put the control to somebody else, okay, then you are not responsible. You don't have to worry about it. So that way you can look at it. That
Yeah,
surrender
Yeah.
only
means-
for our benefit, our
Just
mind.
like the way
I think
when
earlier chapter we read the same thing. Karmic actions nobody can change. By
Right.
surrendering to God, whatever going to happen, suppose you are doing some action, you don't expect anything. It can be positive or negative.
correct.
But when it is going to be negative, then you feel like surrender to God. By surrendering to God, the negative result will not change to positive.
No.
Always it will happen. Whatever supposed to happen, it will happen. But by surrendering to God, what is the result is? The negative result coming out of that action, the intensity will come down. The
Correct.
intensity will come down, you feel peaceful.
See, what?
Yes.
I think that's what we read in the earlier chapter also. The intensity of the resultant action will come down by surrendering to God.
Yes, it is for the mind's sake. What is getting agitated, what is getting peaceful. So only your mind. So just to control the mind and, guide it, we need these kind of practices. Surrendering. It may not change the outcome, but our mind will accept it. See, we are all driven by the mind. That's the only
Basically,
thing.
surrender to God
Hmm.
without any expectations, and whatever comes in your way, just accept it. That's it.
Yeah, that is practice, Sairam. Okay, so this concludes chapter 4. If any one of you, if all of you have your books, maybe you can write a point or two. We talked about this chapter began with Yudhishthira feeling bad and wanting to do something for salvation, and ended with him surrendering to Krishna after Krishna gave him ideas on how he can use the funds and where he found the funds from. But basically, long story short, we also kind of took a little, I guess, a detour to talk about karma and dharma in this chapter, because Yudhishthira was talking on and on about his karmic actions and how it will impact everybody. And we talked about how the actions have to be dharmic, as in doing the right action. And we talked about what defines that right action. We talked about practice, and we ended it with surrendering to God. So if anyone has anything to add, this would be great. Yes, please go ahead, Manoj.
talking about sacrificing 3 horses. So
Yeah.
we are now creating another karma here. We're creating another big karma here. I mean, obviously, Lord Krishna is there, he is approving it. In that case, it will be gone without a result if
Yeah.
Krishna wants it. Otherwise, if anyone else is doing it, we need to be careful. We are creating another karma for our next life. For that would be going in our store bank, Sanchit karma.
Yeah.
Sanchit karma. That will create another prarabdha for it.
Right.
So we have to be careful about creating these kind of karmas also otherwise.
Yeah, I agree.
Sai Ram. So, I mean, next slide takeaway from
Yes.
this chapter. One thing I realize is a person of that highest soul like Yudhishthira could have so much of wavering. You know, he's arguing with God on why God says that you don't carry any sin, and he says, no, I have done this.
Yeah.
So he has cancelled it, but he says, no, don't cancel it. That's not. So, when such a soul is able to go through that, we should not be feeling too bad about, fluctuations that happen. So I think that is the lesson I'm taking from here. Don't, put yourself down with hit yourself on the head. It's okay.
Yeah.
As long as you realize that this is wrong and, I should correct it. I think that is the lesson I'm getting from it.
Sai Ram, thank you. Yeah.
And I wanted a clarification or maybe a question. Like I think maybe Vijay Kumar Garu was talking about lack of intensity as you grow older or something. Now, I feel the intensity should not be in the terms of energy. We should still be energetic. Doesn't matter how old. In fact, these kind of sessions should give us energy. It should not drain us out. But yeah, maybe the lack or reduction in intensity of restlessness. That I would agree. I think that's something that we should aim for, that we should be, as we are participating in all these sessions, we should have reduction in intensity of restlessness. But I feel that we should still feel more energetic after these things. That's what.
Shobha.
Not a takeaway, but a side note. The name Yudhishthira is actually means firm will in the war. So he's like unwavering in the war. That's what the name itself means.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yes. So he's like after the war, before the war, he was firm. He wanted to go to war. Bhima, someone told me about this. Bhima also wanted to go to war. He wanted to kill, right?
Yes.
And
For
repair-
Draupadi's case.
For Draupadi's sake, right? Arjuna was the one who wavered during the war.
Yeah.
But last two, Nakul and Sahadeva, are the ones who never questioned, never wavered. So if you
Oh.
want to learn surrender, you have to learn from them.
Oh.
How they, completely surrendered to the older brother's decision. They don't question anything. So we have to follow their example when we're following anything like this.
Very
It's
nice.
the Nakul and Sahadeva who are not talked about much, but they're actually exemplary, in this kind of a thing. So I just wanted to make
Thank
that
you.
point.
Take it in that manner. It's your high thinking you're taking in that manner. That's a lesson. Otherwise, because you do not have a choice. I mean,
Sai Ram, your mic is not on.
yeah, we appreciate it's your high thinking and the person who wrote that his high thinking that they surrendered. I'm not sure whether they surrendered. They did not have a choice, maybe. They were so they were so junior in the hierarchy. They did not have a choice. So we cannot
No,
just
but we can't
No,
say that really.
actually,
So even Lakshmana was like that, right?
Lakshmana
Lakshmana
completes
also said anything Rama says. In fact, he was offended that Rama thought that he had a thought. Yeah, so that kind of thing can happen, and that is idealistic. Having 5 brothers who are, called making.
Sakadeva was very highly educated, very much into astrology and well learned, very matured among all of them. He knows all the shastras, all this. So probably he was in that mind, set all the time in a higher level. So he has no question. That's the one saying that on the whoever is in spiritual path and realized, they say the spiritual seekers, they have lot of questions, but no answer. And the realized one has the answer. They have no question at all. So he was at that point, he
He had
doesn't
no
have to
question.
question anything.
But to Manojji's point, I see what he's saying, but yeah, totally taken well. Agree.
Kshatriyas by profession, they want to go on war. Even soldiers, if you look them, they actually look forward to it. So I think Nakul Sahadeva, they all are Kshatriyas, right? So my point is they would want to go in the war. I mean, the other people could be confused. Yeah.
So we don't know about them, but that's a great point. I agree. I mean, at least there was a rule of following the elders. Somewhere along the line, that rule has gone southwards, and now our kids don't follow us at all. So that's okay.
What Baba is telling us. Be a follower, not a leader.
Yeah.
Don't try to make your own decisions, lead others, lead this, lead that. Instead
Correct.
of that, think of following what Baba has already told. It's so simple, right? He already gave us how to behave, how to talk, how to eat, how to not do certain stuff. It cannot be more simpler than that. All
Yeah.
we have to do is just follow.
Just following is not just, but okay. So, so we'll move on to the next chapter, and that is chapter 5. So just as a side note for this, I did not come up with any questions for chapter 5. I just felt like it was just describing the entire story. But we can have a little discussion after if you have any other pointers to add. So with that, can we increase the volume of this as well? It's on? Okay. No, I just want to make sure that we can hear this. So this is chapter 5.
Bhagavata Vahini, Chapter 5, Yajnas and Penance of Elders. Dharmaraja accepted the advice of Vasudeva as well as the benediction of Vyasa. He sent his brothers with the army to bring the gold that had been thrown aside by the Brahmins. They left after purifying themselves by partaking consecrated offerings. They discovered the quantities of gold that had been given as presents to the priests at the conclusion of the sacrifice by Emperor Maruth in the past. They had dropped the gold on the sides of the roads along which they had returned home. The army collected these and conveyed them to the capital on camels, elephants, chariots and carts. It took them some days to reach Hastinapura with all that load. They unloaded the gold amidst the acclamations of the people. The citizens were amazed at the success of the expedition. They extolled the good fortune of the Pandavas. They welcomed into the city the princess and the gold, shouting "Jai, Jai," until their throats were hoarse, and also jumping and dancing in joy. They pictured among themselves the grandeur and the magnificence of the sacrifice for which the gold was brought. Preparations were started that very day for the construction of the ritual altar and the necessary adjuncts on the bank of the Ganga. The sacred area was many square miles in extent. The ground was levelled and cleaned. The dais was built and beautiful buildings arose on the vast area. Porches and verandas were added. Decorations like flags and festoons embellished the structures. Finally, when the holy day neared, chieftains, Brahmins, scholars and sages moved from all directions towards the sacred place, hastening each other in their enthusiasm to reach early. They took residence in the quarters allotted to them according to their status and needs. They spent the night counting minutes in joyful expectation of the extravagant but efficacious yajna that they could witness when the dawn brings in another day. The morning came. The auspicious moment approached. The priests took up their positions and got ready to take the vows of initiation. They stood up facing Lord Krishna and the king and said, "O king, we understand that you have resolved to perform not one but 3 Ashwamedhas, the horse sacrifices. Is that correct? If so, do you desire us to perform them one after the other? Or shall we repeat every formula and rite thrice, and have them all concurrently. If you make it known, we shall arrange the participants and performing priests accordingly. At this, Dharmaraja replied, "What can I say when you know the best? I shall agree to whatever advice you offer. I seek only the consent of Vasudeva for whatever course we adopt." And he turned towards Krishna with pleading eyes. Krishna left the decision to the Brahmins. They discussed among themselves for a while and announced at last that the effect of 3 Ashwamedhas can be secured by repeating each mantra thrice and presenting the Brahmins presiding over the rituals thrice the usual fees. Vasudeva indicated his approval of the suggestion, and taking his cue from this, Dharmaraja declared that he was agreeable. He desired that the yajna might be inaugurated. The recitation of the mantras by the Brahmins shook both the earth and sky. The preliminary rites were gone through, and the sacrificial horses proceeded on their planned round. They were caparisoned in great style, and they carried on their foreheads the declaration, challenging anyone to take them into custody if he dared. When he, who is the recipient of all yajnas, Yajna Swarupa, has taken the role of the presiding authority, no words can describe the fortune of the participants and the witnesses. Finally, it drew to a successful close with the valedictory oblation, that is, the Purnahuti. The experts in sacrificial mantras, the sages and the Brahmins, were loaded with presents and feasts. Enormous numbers of cows, large areas of land, and vast quantities of gold were gifted away by the king. The whole nation was filled with happiness. Everyone was praising the yajna as indescribably superb. All who came were fed sumptuously at all hours. Sages and ascetics who saw all this lavishness extolled the yajna of Dharmaraja as grander even than the yajna performed by Emperor Marut in the past. They were delighted that they had the chance to partake in this yajna. People once claimed that the yajna of Marut was presided by the Indra, the ruler of the gods, and they felt that it made it incomparably superb to any other sacrifice. But now, they congratulated Dharmaraja on securing the Yajna Swarupa, Vasudeva himself, to preside over the yajna, a piece of good fortune far superior to Marut's and far more difficult to secure. At the end of the yajna, those who had come from far-off places returned, others too returned home. The kings and chieftains took respectful leave of Dharmaraja and went back to their own principalities. The kinsmen of the king stayed for a few days more and left at their convenience to their places. However, Lord Krishna chose to spend some more time with the Pandavas, so he stayed on in Hastinapura. The Pandavas were delighted at this single act of grace. They made suitable arrangements for the residence of the Lord. They served him every day. They filled their eyes with his beauty. They filled their hearts with his gracious words of instruction. They spent the days in supreme joy. After some time spent thus, in the Pandava capital, Krishna returned to Dwaraka, taking Arjuna with him. The inhabitants of Dwaraka were overjoyed when their Lord returned to his capital. They welcomed him in enthusiastic reverence. They feasted on the darshan of the Lord and were immersed in ananda, bliss. Meanwhile, news came to Hastinapura that Vidura, his uncle, was moving about in the environs of the city in the guise of a monk. It travelled from mouth to mouth and at last reached the ears of Dharmaraja, the king. The news was received with surprise and joy. He sent a few scouts to discover whether the news was authentic, and soon they brought the welcome information that Vidura had actually come and was present. Dharmaraja could not contain himself with excitement. "Ah, how happy you have made me!" he exclaimed. "This holy moment has made the dry trunk of the tree of hope put forth leaves again. Oh, I can now see and serve Vidura, who fostered us, guarded us, and guided us. I who feared I might not get the chance at all." The heartening news was spread by the courtiers among the queens and princesses and women of the royal household. Dharmaraja did not rest. He spoke about the great event to everyone around him. He sought out others to share with them the joy. He issued orders to the army that appropriate arrangements should be made to welcome into the capital the brother of his late father, sage Vidura, foremost among the votaries of the Lord. The citizens too were alerted and were asked to prepare a grand reception. They decorated the streets and mansions on each side of them. They erected arches and hung festoons and hoisted flags. They allotted galleries and seats on every road for children, women, and the aged, so that they might have a fine and clear view of the procession and of the great sage. It was an inspiring sight to see many old men and women hobbling on with their sticks, eager to see a glimpse of Vidura, whom they extolled as the very embodiment of Dharma, as the very godfather of the Pandavas. Some thought at first that the sighting of Vidura on the outskirts of the city must have been in someone's dream, and not in actual fact. They had lived long enough to swallow the rumor without personal verification, for they never could believe that Vidura would ever come back to Hastinapura. They grouped themselves on vantage points and got ready for the great moment when they could rest their eyes on the saint. All along the route, every building was overflowing with humanity. The trees carried strings of adventurous youth, full of excitement and expectation, shouting in exclamation of the oncoming guest. The king, decked in ceremonial robes, ascended the royal chariot and started out of the palace with his brothers to bring home the famous votary of the Lord. Vidura appeared before them, walking barefoot, slow and dignified, with matted hairs and wearing the robes of a monk. The king and his brothers stepped down from their vehicles, bowed reverentially to the feet of Vidura, and walked behind him at a respectful distance. The citizens ran forward and fell at Vidura's feet, in spite of the earnest entreaties of the guards that they should desist. The Pandavas could not express welcome in words. Their joy was immeasurable. So their eyes spoke it with tears in gratitude. They clasped Vidura with their arms and prayed to him that he should get into the chariot so that the thick ranks of onlookers on all the roads might get darshan to their heart's content. Vidura was persuaded to agree. Seated in the royal chariot of the king, Vidura gave darshan to the people who had amassed en route. At last, the procession reached the palace. It was a sweet flood of song and joy that flowed along the roads of the city that day. Some of the citizens were so overcome with joy that they were rooted to the spot. The arduous life of tapas that Vidura had undertaken had so transmuted his personality that he appeared a different person, a person glowing with divine aura, like Indra, the king of the gods. The people were describing the exaltation in their own words to one another. Many shed tears, remembering the trials and tribulations which Vidura had undergone and the peace that he had acquired. The queens and princesses too had darshan inside the parda, and they were supremely happy.
Okay, Sairam. That was the end of chapter 5. Again, I have just said open floor because I really don't have any questions here or anything that we can think about. I think this was just a chapter of description of how things went along, very descriptive. If anyone has anything to add here, this is great.
I agree with you that this chapter was a description, but there is one paragraph there which I think is worth pondering over. That is where, the kings were asking the Brahmins
Okay.
on how to perform, which way, do one after the other. And, if you look at that conversation,
Right.
they suggested something, and Yudhishthira said, looked at Krishna, and then Krishna said, okay, you decide, and
Yeah.
whatever you decide is okay. This is something that we can actually see in our real life.
Okay.
Many times we, ask for a suggestion from somebody and then overrule it.
Overrule it.
Overrule it. You say whatever you decide will be the thing, and then they come and decide something, and then you come back and then say, no, I don't think that's what you should do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a lesson where, you have given a trust and responsibility, and just because in some shade it's not matching with your own thinking, you just change your mind. And so there are bosses like that, they will go and ask for ideas, and they have an idea already.
Yes.
And then, so they will be asking finally to find one person who agrees with that idea, gives the idea. And then they will say, yes, I got the idea. So he gave the best idea because that's what he has already decided. So you're not looking for an idea at all. So I think that is one lesson I learned from this whole chapter.
That's awesome, Shankaranji. Thank you for enlightening us because I really did not see the lesson at all. So thank you so much. No, but I mean, now I see it. I'm just saying that initially when I read it multiple times just to see, I even chewed on Ashaji's head quite a bit. I said, give me any questions on this one. It doesn't, nothing. Yeah, she also felt what I felt. Yes, please go ahead.
Keep looking for the favorable suggestion only. People keep giving the suggestions, and then finally we say we surrender, or we call it surrender, but in fact we are looking for that particular answer to be fulfilled.
Correct.
That's what I mean. As in a lighter note, Mamta asks me every day, "What would you like to eat?"
Yes.
I say, "Okay, let's have some sambar." Oh, that is too spicy. Oh, so let's have some aloo butter. No, that's too tough to peel off the butter. So finally, she will make the thing which she wants to make and make me decide. It looks like I am the decider, but she's indirectly deciding it.
I agree. I mean, my husband does the same
I
thing
can
with me.
decide. I'm
She's
related to that.
asking, right?
At least she's asking, yes.
Right. Okay.
I'm on the other side. I ask, but I do whatever I do.
Yeah.
So why bother to ask? That is the question, why even ask? But what I got in that Ashwamedha Yaga, that after the Yaga, it went, even at that time, they were comparing the person who did it before, but the Brahmins threw everything because it was excess. I wonder how many threw whatever they did. Even then, the
Yeah.
comparison and the egoism, all was there. Even with Lord Vasudeva around them, the thinking was, I have to do better and in a grand scale. And everybody was
No, I
happy
think it
because of
turned
that.
out good because Vasudeva was there.
But why take pride in it? I don't know. But
I don't
they
think it
seem
was
to
a
be
pride.
very
I
happy
think it was-
about it.
It is a statement. I don't know if
I
that's a
don't
pride.
know. The story goes like they were comparing with whatever happened the previous time, but this time it is a lot better.
No, that was running
So
on
the
my mind
thing
also.
hasn't changed even now.
And it was running on my mind. Like, see,
exactly.
we are talking about like thousands of
See,
years
our
back.
thinking
We are
is the
talking
same
about
even today.
gold and all these things. Like, we keep thinking. And for that other thing which we are talking about, like Yudhishthira asking the Brahmins and also for
Yeah.
Krishna, I feel like if Krishna is the orchestrator of everything, like, okay, what if he came to this and okay, he then asked me to whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Probably like if he got a different answer from Brahmins or something like this, he would have changed it. He knows like what to turn it also. So
Yeah.
I don't know what exactly, like I always confuse, like when everything knows by Krishna and if he's the orchestrator of everything,
Mhm.
so what exactly we are trying to like, okay, it keeps us to the point, like always a confusion kind of thing.
So I was coming to the same point. Out of all that paragraphs, one line caught my attention. You asked what question?
Yes.
So when Dharmaraj asked how to do this all this ceremony.
Yes.
He asked Krishna. Krishna did not give the answer, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't he know that how to do that one? He did not answer how to do that. Instead of that, he asked priests to answer, all the Brahmins to respond to
Yes.
that, right? So what we get from that line is, if you are given certain position, that doesn't mean you should take care of it. I mean, you should do everything and you should say, this is my instructions, you should follow whatever I say.
Yeah.
So you are delegating who is responsible for that one. Like when you are sitting in a very high position, can you do that? Of course, you might be capable of doing that, but it's not a right way. There are people delegated for that work. So you are asking them, okay, is this the right way to do that?
Yeah.
So that's what caught my attention. So
Agree.
you always have a choice of doing a right thing by asking a right person. That's what I got.
Very nice point.
But I
Yes.
think in that lesson, nobody is asking for suggestion there. I think Dharmaraja asked Krishna to decide.
Yes.
He did not ask for suggestion, "Now what should I do?"
Yeah.
And Krishna in turn asked the Brahmins to decide. He did not ask for suggestion. And whatever Brahmins decided, I think he simply accepted, okay, go with that.
Yeah.
But in our real life, we never ask somebody to decide your action. You always take the suggestions. You consult 3-4 people,
Nice
get the
point.
suggestions,
Yes, Vijay.
and then you go by the best suggestion given to you. But in that lesson, it is not the suggestion, it is actually, he is authorizing Krishna to decide. And Krishna decided, okay, you ask the Brahmins, you decide.
Correct. Yeah.
That's it. And whatever Brahmin said, I think, Yudhishthira went with that.
Yeah. That's a good point. Anyone else have anything to add? Because now I'm going to put you through an ordeal of listening to chapter 6. Okay, we are going to listen to chapter 6 and see how much of discussion we can get to that. We do have time, but I just want to let you know it's only a 5 or 7 minute chapter.
I was not very clear on why Vidura was introduced in this chapter, because this
I have no
talking,
idea. But
suddenly,
he is
it is a change of pace.
I think
I was
think this
expecting
is
something to happen, but
no,
still
no.
happened.
So I actually think that when Swami wrote this Bhagavata Vahini, he was just reiterating the events. We are taking lessons from what he wrote. So basically, it is as it happened from Swami's, because he is the all-knowing. He has written the story as it happened after the Ashwamedha. Because generally, our Mahabharata ends with Kurukshetra. I have not really, and even the Bhagavatam, we actually read the stories of personalities. We have not really gone into the details, and I think that's what it
I
is.
think the chapter is coming to an end as far as the Pandavas and Krishna interaction that is coming to an end.
Ashwamedha
Yeah,
chapter is
right.
done.
And not
Mm.
only that, Krishna also after this. So I think this is the last time they see Krishna, it seems, something like that. It comes later.
Yeah.
Vidura, he plays a major role. It is going to come. So he is going to all explanations and for Dhritarashtra, especially to change his mind and go towards the power. So he is playing a very important role. So it's going to come. This is just an introduction. No, he
So Vidura's role. Okay, can someone talk about Vidura's role in Mahabharata, please? It comes in this. Okay, I have not read after chapter 7. So
About the Ashwamedha Yaga, just to be clear, because Manoj you said something earlier about horse. Sacrificing horse doesn't mean they're killing the horse. They're leaving them. They leave the horses. The best horses they select and they just leave them. I
but
just wanted to
isn't there a war associated with that Ashwamedha?
Yes, Ashwamedha Yaga is for the king to prove his prowess, his power. So whoever fights, the horse will go around the country and the other kings can challenge and fight with the horse. If they do
Fight
that,
with the horse?
yeah, they try to control it or
Control.
something. They kind of start a
There's
war.
the army that follows the
Yeah.
horse?
They fight.
Oh.
So then the one who is sending the horse out, like Yudhishthira in this case, then he can fight with those kings. This is like pretty much like they are all surrendering. They are accepting Yudhishthira as the king of kings. Yeah.
The same
So
thing
that is
happened
the-
with Rama also.
Right.
Rama left
Rama
Rama.
did that,
That's why
Ashwamedha.
I'm asking. I mean, why is this? So my first question about the whole horse sacrifice only was like, of course, because we don't know that, I don't have the knowledge, so I can't really
No, they
appreciate it.
don't.
I agree.
Yeah, it is like they send the horse out, so they all accept him as the king for them. So
Why
super
is that
king.
important to the king?
They are all under his control, so to say. So this is the important thing. Why kings acquire other countries? They always go for war and.
Sairam, okay,
right,
1 minute.
right, yeah.
Now, okay, that is what is most confusing about, and that's exactly why I
Right.
put that question on Ashwamedha, because Yudhishthira feeling guilty about the war. Okay. Now he sends horses that if you want to challenge me. Why? Yeah, see, that in my head, maybe I'm not understanding what this is. And that's totally.
I think that when you do the Ashwamedha Yaga, you have to be like a super king, like a supreme power. Then only you can do that Ashwamedha Yaga.
So let
Yeah.
me clarify that question. So there was a theory of kings and samrat. That's where it comes from. Yudhishthira wanted to become the samrat. Samrat is super king. Super king.
King of kings.
So kings will continue to rule their countries. He is not going to fight with them or invade them. It's matter of uh, like binding them together under one samrajya and samrat. The word came from same thing. Just like they were different states, every state has their own power. So India became a union of all the states. It is the same concept. Different kings will keep ruling their countries, their parts of the countries, and Samrajya, he will become the Samrat by sending this that will be under one final supervision or Samrajya, the super king. That was the
So
first.
he was not in any frame of mind to actually renunciate anything.
No. That comes later. Vidura plays a role in yes, yeah. So yeah.
Just to add to that, I think he don't want to have any more wars. If he is like the Samrat, in future he wanted to avoid all the wars for the next generations, and that could be the reason.
So is it a warning? Is it a warning?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
See, they
So, yeah,
receive the
it's-
horse
I-
with respect, as if the king is coming to their state. They receive the horse with all the respect whenever it was traveling around. Yeah, that's what. Yeah. So if they don't, that means they are against. They are not accepting him as the emperor of the whole state. So that is where it is. It is again to prove that he is the most
Super king.
powerful. Exactly.
So
Exactly.
that's exactly the Alexander also is trying to do.
Yes. Yes.
So what happened at the end of the Alexanders? Like, why don't we compare Alexander to these guys?
Cruel. Cruel, yeah.
Definition of
I
cruelty
think we
also a
should
different.
go into
Yeah.
all this good, bad. I think that that's it'll sidetrack us if you think of all that, because what is cruel, what is not cruel, any war is cruel at the end of the day. So this it is symbolic only that the horse goes and everybody accepts it. The major part of it is everything, all the gifts that they give to all the people, the gold, everything, so much of that's what we talked about, right?
So
So yeah, for everyone, whoever comes
for the Ashwamedha Yaga,
the
everybody
yaga,
comes.
everybody comes,
comes,
everybody
yes.
is given gifts
Yes,
generously.
yes.
So it's more about giving, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But there is a side story attached to this that they actually talk about it. Is like someone is in the audience will be saying, "Oh, what a great yagna! What a great sacrifice! We're getting all these things." There is a small half golden mongoose. You remember that story, Uma? You remember? So just to share everyone,
yeah.
if someone doesn't know it. So this mongoose says, "What kind of sacrifice is this? This is no great sacrifice. I've seen better sacrifice than this." So then this person says, what better sacrifice can there be? Look at how much wealth they're giving away. Gold, this, that, everything, right? Who can give more than this? So this mongoose tells the story of how it became half gold. So one side of the mongoose is gold, and the other side is not. So the story is one time it's going around for food, and then it's like outside a house, and then it sees this one person come and knock on that house. That's a very family of 4 people who are living very poor. They have very little food to eat, and they barely survive day to day. So they get some food that day that, they're so starved for a long time and they get little bit of food that day to eat. So they're all ready to eat and someone knocks on the door. It's like father, mother, and their son and the daughter-in-law. So it's a guest. Guest is Atidhi is God's Swarupa, right, in our culture. So they welcome him, and the guest says, "I'm very very hungry. I want to eat." So the father, has to decide like, okay, you know what, I'll sacrifice my portion, and we'll serve the guest. So he gives his portion, and the guest eats it. He's still hungry. He says, "I'm still hungry." So the mother gives it. Then the son. So that's the last meal. I mean, they're starving for so long. If that even that they gave away for the guest. The guest, after eating all 4 portions, is satisfied and he leaves. And this mongoose is watching, in their house in a corner, it'll be watching. And so the whole family overnight, they're so starved that without that meal, they all died that night. And there was a little bit of food that was left there on the ground. This mongoose rolls in it and becomes half gold, because the deed was so unselfish. Even the last meal that would have sustained their life, they gave it for without any. That is a sacrifice, he says. And he says, I'm waiting for one more sacrifice like that, so my rest of the body will turn
So
gold.
it goes
And he
everywhere
never
to roll
sees
around.
it.
Yeah, he goes and rolls around wherever he hears this
Any
kind of yajna,
sacrifices,
yaga.
yeah.
The other half never
So-
became golden color on his skin. Right. So the point, yeah, Dharmaraj.
Yeah, although it's a great thing, there are greater sacrifices that have been made by people. So we have to remember.
So back to this question of Ashwamedha Yaga. One thing is, it's a yaga. The horse that is there is, is empowered.
Yeah.
So what he's really, trying to establish here is nobody is willing to challenge. So he wants to rule the country with, utmost dharma, and he wants to make sure that everybody accepts him. So what are, that is his desire, that he still has that desire, that he wants to be do everything very well. And so this is, nobody can really challenge, because if the yajna was very successful, that horse will have all the strength to prevent anybody from challenging that.
Got it.
So basically, that is the whole idea. That if anybody challenges, they are not going to win, because they cannot control that horse. And so, and there's an accepted, protocol that, hey, that is the case. If nobody is challenging, then you all accept me as the.
Yeah. And he's obviously supposed to protect those kingdoms then. Yes.
So we are in a different time zone of dharmas, like Kshatriyas. So we are talking about thousands of years, right, back. So those days, dharmas were different. And those are Kala Dharma, whatever we call, right? So those days, there were a lot of kingdoms, small pieces of, individual pieces of
Right.
self-controlled areas. You call them, some Billus were, Ataviks, where they live in forest. Some people, there will be some small kingdoms. So there will be a lot of instability those days. Everybody fights another small kingdom and then try to acquire something. So what happens is, in Kshatriya those days, the dharma is to get the stability. So Ashwamedha Yaga intention is twofold. One is you're doing all the other yajnas, Vedas, whatever the required, preferred process. Along with that, so the Ashwamedha's purpose is to get the stability in the region. Wherever the king, the emperor comes, not for the wealth or not for anything, but to make sure all these small kingdoms doesn't fight with each other. And he establishes the stability at, like what happens in small, even we saw that even in the modern India, before independence, before UK, the Britishers came, before Mughals came, there were always wars in the subcontinent.
Yes.
So that is the reason why they used to perform Ashwamedha Yaga every time. Like you go to Ramayana back, those days, the mighty king will come and try to establish the stability of the area wherever he can go further. It's always some territory has to be, confined. It doesn't mean he's going to Iran, Iraq, all the way to whatever the Middle Eastern countries. But whatever the area that he can acquire and make that stable, that's the reason why they do Ashwamedas, to get the stability to that land wherever they can control. That's the reason.
Very nicely put. Any other?
Definitely that the word which repeatedly came as sacrifice, so which is a misnomer. The speaker very smartly spoke yagna whenever the word sacrifice was. So it is not the sacrifice which we would take it otherwise.
Yeah.
It's not that kind of sacrifice.
Yeah.
It's to be taken in the form of yagna only.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's go on. And this is the end of chapter 5. If you have any takeaways, thank you, Shankaranji. Now I do have a takeaway for this. And we can write it down and move on to the next chapter. I don't know how much of discussion we can have, but we can definitely listen to it and we can get a plan for our next discussion. So this is about Vidura.
Bhagavata Vahini, Chapter 6, Vidura's Renunciation. Inside the palace, Vidura inquired about the welfare of every one of his kinsmen. Then Kunti Devi, the queen mother, came in and casting her enduring looks at him said, "At last we have been able to see you, O Vidura." She couldn't say any more. After some time, she resumed, "How could you stay away so long, ignoring the very children whom you reared with so much love, and myself and others who revere you so much? It is through your grace that my children are today rulers of this land. Where would be they today if you had not saved them on many a critical occasion? We were the target for many a disaster, but the greatest one was your being away from us. That affected us most. Even the hope of seeing you again was extinguished in us. Now our hearts have sprouted again. Aspirations scattered by despair have come together. Today our joy has attained fullness. Oh, what a happy day." Kunti sat for a while, wiping her tears. Vidura held her hands, but couldn't resist his own tears. He was recapitulating the varied events of the past in the Pandava and Kaurava groups. He said, "Mother Kunti Devi, who can overcome the decrees of fate? What must happen, happens. The good and the evil that men do have to result in good and evil. How can man be called free when he is bound by this law of cause and effect? He is a puppet in the hands of this law. It pulls the strings and he makes the movements. Our likes and dislikes are of no consequence. Everything is his will and grace." When Vidura was expounding the fundamental spiritual truths that govern human affairs, the brothers Dharmaraja, Bhima, Nakula and Sahadeva were sitting near, wrapped in close attention. Kunti raised her head at last and said, "Through your blessings, O Vidura, we won the war, but were powerless to save the lives of the sons of Draupadi and the son of Subhadra. Misfortune haunted us so strongly. Of course, as you said, no one can escape one's destiny. Well, let the past be forgotten. It is meaningless to worry over what cannot be set right. I must say, my thirst has now been considerably relieved. I could meet you at last. Where were you all this time? Tell us." At this, Vidura replied that he had been on a pilgrimage to a number of holy places. The brothers listened with rapt attention to his story, prodding him with questions. Dharmaraja said often that he was waiting the day when he too could go through all those holy experiences. He folded his palms in reverence whenever a holy shrine was mentioned, and with closed eyes he pictured to himself the sacred spot. Meanwhile, Bhima interjected. Did you proceed to Dwaraka? Please tell us your experiences there. Dharmaraja too added, You must have met Lord Krishna there, isn't it? Tell us all that happened in full detail. Kunti Devi too became eager to hear his description, for she said, Tell us, my son is there now. You must have met him too. How are they all? I hope the old parents, Nanda and Yashoda, are well, and Devaki and Vasudeva. A shower of questions fell on Vidura even before he started talking. Vidura was not over-eager to answer. He talked as if he was anxious to avoid being drawn into the topic. For he had learned from Uddhava, while on the way to Dwaraka, that Yadava clan had perished and Krishna had closed his human career. He had no desire to plunge the Pandavas into grief when they were elated at meeting him after a long time. Why should I, who have given them so much joy, be myself the cause for wiping off the joy? He argued. They are sure to know about it from Arjuna, who will be returning from Dwaraka with the sorrowful news. So he swallowed the news that popped up quite often into his mouth. He satisfied himself and them by describing the glory of Krishna. He said, I did not like to visit kith and kin with these ascetic robes on, so I did not meet any of the Yadava leaders or Nanda, Yashoda and others. And he kept quiet. He did not dilate further on Dwaraka and his own pilgrimage. I came to you because I heard that you have won the war and are peacefully engaged at last in ruling over the kingdom which was rightfully yours. I felt drawn towards these children whom I had fostered from a tender age. It was affection towards them that drew me here. Among my kith and kin, I was tempted to visit only you. I did not desire to meet any others. He said, and turned towards the Vedantic teachings which he wanted to impart. When the conversation ended, Dharmaraja prayed that Vidura might take residence at the quarters specially arranged for him, and himself accompanied him to the mansion. There, he appointed certain persons to serve Vidura, and requested him to take rest at that place. Vidura didn't relish the idea of spending his time in that seat of luxury, but he entered the mansion not to displease Dharmaraja. He lay on his bed, reviving the past. He sighed when he realized that the stratagems which the blind Dhritarashtra, his own brother, employed to destroy the Pandavas, the children of his own brother Pandu, recoiled on him and caused the destruction of his own clan. He admired Dharmaraja for the magnanimity he was showing towards Dhritarashtra, in spite of the fact that he had tortured the Pandavas in various ways. Dharmaraja was revering him with great faith and devotion and attending to his comforts. He felt the utmost disgust when he recapitulated the wickedness of Dhritarashtra's heart. He was ashamed that the old man was coolly wallowing in the luxury of the palace, instead of cultivating detachment from the flimsy pleasures of the senses and attempting to realize the goal of human life, namely liberation from the cycle of birth and death. He experienced uncontrollable agony that his brother was wasting the few remaining years of life on earth. His yogic vision told him that the Pandavas too will soon disappear, that the same Krishna who guarded them here will look after their best interest in the hereafter too. But he surmised that the blind king will suffer more after the departure of the Pandavas. He therefore resolved to send that unfortunate brother out into pilgrimage and the ultimate realization of his destiny. He did not want any delay to intervene, so he slipped out in the darkness without being noticed by anyone and walked straight into the residence of Dhritarashtra. The blind king and his queen Gandhari were of course expecting Vidura to call upon them, for they had learnt that he had come to town.
I don't have this.
So when Vidura stepped in, he embraced him and shed tears of joy. He could not contain himself. He listed out one by one the calamities that overtook him and his children and lamented over fate. Vidura tried to console him with the profound teachings of the scriptures, but he soon discovered that the petrified heart of the old man will not melt at the application of cold advice. He knew that his stupidity can only be overcome by hard blows. So he changed his tune and resorted to blame and abuse. Hearing this, Dhritarashtra was alarmed. He said, "Brother, we are burning in agony at the loss of 100 sons, and you prick the wound with the sharp needles of your angry abuse? Even before we taste the joy of meeting you after so long a time, why do you try to plunge us deeper into distress? Alas, why should I blame you for hard-heartedness? I am, after all, laughed by all and blamed by all. I have no right to find fault with you." With head bent and resting on his palms, Dhritarashtra sat in silence. Vidura recognized this as the opportune moment.
So I just wanted to add here that the chapter 6 ended there, and they have recorded chapter 6 and 7. I was checking on my notes. So we were talking about chapter 7, going where Vidura goes into Dhritarashtra's house and has that conversation. Chapter 6 typically ended at Vidura, sorry, okay. Yeah, where Vidura just slipped out of, yes, just he walked out in the dark. That's where chapter 6 ended. And that's why just wanted to kind of check into my thing that yes, he decided to visit him, but the next chapter will continue about how he transformed Dhritarashtra. Okay. Again, on this chapter, I was actually more thinking along the lines of what renunciation is. But if anyone has anything to add, we can definitely talk about it. From this chapter on Vidura and where he's been and what he's been doing, he has renunciated a lot of things and his life in this as a king or as a prince and has moved out. He was never the part of war. He never participated in war. He was never asking for the kingdom, neither did he desire the kingdom. It doesn't matter if he got it. He was not interested. So again, so my takeaway from here was renunciation, and that's where I was going to start discussion for this chapter, moving on from next week or even this week, whatever works. But that's where we were. That's what my thought was. Anyone have anything to add?
We don't have much time. Yeah, Vidura was born to a maid. So in the hierarchy of heirs, he won't get the kingdom. That is one thing.
Yes.
But he was a good person. So anyway, but in this chapter reading, one thing struck me that we were talking about Yudhishthira's yajna and whatever he did and whatnot. But he was so magnanimous that Yudhishthira, the whole thing, whatever they have gone through their life, everything was, though Duryodhana instigated most of it, Yudhishthira was like literally blind to all them. But though he knew, he didn't stop them, he didn't advise his kids.
Right.
So even knowing that Yudhishthira, that he is giving him at the last, in the age of his, life, taking care of him very well
Yes.
as his father. That's something we can all learn. The people who have done us harm, we forgive and
Move
we respect,
Yes. Yes.
take care of that. Yeah. That's one thing. He didn't have that vengeance in his heart.
Absolutely. Okay. And then, so next week, I think we can start talking about renunciation instead of going into how Dhritarashtra is transformed. Because where Dhritarashtra transforms, these are lessons learned for a lot of us as we grow. And I think that would be a different conversation. But moving on from Vidura, I really just thought renunciation is something that we can work on from next week. We'll definitely do that. It is Swami's discourse on renunciation. With that, we can end with Om and three Shantis. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you all for your participation. Jai Sai Ram.